Usually when we look out at our yards, we see like a peaceful retreat.
Right.
You probably look out there and see a place to relax, maybe set up a hammock, just enjoy the shade.
Yeah, a little slice of nature.
Exactly. It's calming, it's domestic. But today, we are actually asking you to completely throw that image out the window.
Oh, absolutely.
Because underneath that peaceful green canopy, there is a literal war going on. Your yard is basically a battlefield.
It really is. I mean, the trees in your yard, they aren't just sitting there.
Right.
They don't just passively grow. They are actively fighting to survive against environmental stressors that, well, most of us don't even notice, let alone actually understand.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today's deep dive is based on a really fascinating expert guide that focused on mastering tree care down in Palmetto, Florida. But our mission today isn't just about giving you like Florida landscaping tips. It's really to shift your entire mindset.
Exactly.
We want you to stop seeing trees as this passive outdoor furniture that you just plant and forget about.
Yeah, because they're not.
Right. And even if you don't live in Florida, the science of how a tree survives or, how it dies is going to fundamentally change how you look at your own yard.
Totally.
We need to start seeing these trees for what they really are, which are incredibly complex biological structures that require highly strategic defense.
What's fascinating here is that most property owners unknowingly sabotage centuries of natural evolution with just some really basic landscaping mistakes.
Wow, really?
Yeah, we think we're helping, or at least we think we're, keeping things tidy, and we end up putting our own safety, our roofs, and even our power lines at massive risk.
I certainly thought I was doing things right before reading this. So before we even look up at the leaves and the branches, let's look down.
The soil.
Exactly. Because you can't understand a tree's health until you understand the ground it's fighting to grow in. Now, when I think of dirt, I just think of, dirt.
Right, just generic brown stuff.
Yeah. But the guide describes the soil in Palmetto, Florida as basically crushed shells and silica.
Yeah.
It's extremely sandy and has a very high pH. So what does that actually mean for a living thing trying to grow in it?
Well, it means it's a remarkably hostile environment. I mean, this isn't that rich, dark, loamy earth you might see if you live in, say, the Midwest.
Okay.
Because it's essentially sand and crushed shells. Water doesn't soak in and stay. It just drains right through instantly.
It disappears.
Instantly. And when water drains that fast, the essential nutrients leach right out of the soil before the tree's root system can even grab them.
Oh, wow.
So if you want a healthy tree there, you have to stop thinking about dirt and start thinking about soil chemistry. You really need to introduce organic material.
Which brings up something in the source material that honestly made me pause. It says to stop raking away every single leaf in your yard.
It does?
Now, hold on. My neighbors, and honestly most HOAs out there, are totally obsessed with a perfectly clean, manicured lawn.
Oh, I know. It's everywhere.
Right. Are you saying I have to choose between keeping my yard looking neat and keeping my tree alive?
It's a very real conflict. There's this tension between our desire for a manicured aesthetic and the actual biological reality of the tree.
Okay.
When you rake up every single leaf and bag it, you are literally throwing away free fertilizer.
Free fertilizer.
Yeah. The tree dropped those leaves for a reason. When left alone, they break down and create something called humus.
Humus. Like the dip.
Not quite. Humus with one M.
Okay.
It's the dark, organic, sponge-like component of soil that forms when plant matter decomposes.
Gotcha.
That sandy, crushed shell soil desperately needs humus because it acts like a sponge. It holds onto water and nutrients so the tree can actually use them.
So by raking everything away...
By raking it all away, you are stripping the soil of its only mechanism to retain life.
That makes so much sense, but it completely goes against how we are trained to maintain our homes.
It really does.
And I had a similar moment of confusion when reading about watering. Like, I have my automated irrigation system set up. It runs for 5 or 10 minutes. My grass is perfectly green, so I just assume my trees are getting water too.
A very common assumption.
But the guide says that's basically doing nothing. Why would my grass be thriving if the tree is, like, dying of thirst?
Because you're dealing with two entirely different biological systems.
Okay.
Turf grass has very shallow roots, so a 5-minute sprinkle keeps the top inch of soil wet, which is all the grass needs.
Right.
But for a massive structure like a mature live oak, that shallow water just evaporates before it ever reaches the deep feeder roots.
It made me think of trying to hydrate a marathon runner. in the middle of a race by giving them like a single drop of water on their forehead.
Yes.
It barely wets the surface. It might feel nice for a second, but it does absolutely nothing to actually hydrate the system.
That's a brilliant analogy. To actually reach the root system of a mature tree, you need deep saturation.
How deep are we talking?
Well, the standard rule they lay out in the source is 10 gallons of water for every single inch of trunk diameter during dry spells.
Wait, 10 gallons per inch?
Yep, per inch.
That is a massive volume of water.
It is a lot of water, but what's equally important is the timing of when you do it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you have to do this early in the morning. A lot of people think, I'll just water heavily at night so the sun doesn't evaporate it.
I mean, that sounds completely logical to me.
It sounds logical, sure, but biologically, it's a nightmare scenario.
Right.
If you combine sitting water with high humidity in the dark, you are creating an open invitation for fungal pathogens.
Oh, gross.
Yeah, they will move right in and literally rot the root flare that's the base of the tree overnight.
Overnight, that fast.
It happens fast. Consistency and timing beat intensity. It's all about deliberate, deep morning hydration.
Okay, so let's say we get the soil right and we are watering perfectly in the morning.
Okay.
But if the roots are essentially sitting in loose sand and crushed shells, it makes me wonder how these massive structures don't just tip over the second a storm rolls in. What is actually holding them down?
That is the million-dollar question, especially in a hurricane zone like Florida.
Right.
Because the sandy soil doesn't provide a rock-solid deep earth anchor, a weak base underground makes the top canopy incredibly vulnerable to the wind dynamics above ground.
Makes sense.
And this introduces the actual mechanics of pruning.
Right, because I always assumed pruning was just about aesthetics.
Yeah.
You know, making the tree look balanced or keeping branches off the roof.
Most people do.
But it's actually structural defense.
Precisely. Think of a thick, unpruned tree canopy as a giant sail on a boat.
Okay, a giant sail.
When a hurricane hits, that massive, dense sail catches all the wind. And because the roots are just sitting in loose sand,
They just pull out?
exactly, the force of the wind pushing against that thick canopy will pull the entire structure down, roots and all.
Wow.
So the goal of pruning isn't to make the tree look pretty. The goal is to thin the canopy so the wind can physically blow through the branches instead of pushing against them.
Okay, but there has to be a right way to do this, because the guide points out two incredibly disastrous, trendy ways people prune their trees that act as literal death sentences.
Oh, they are the worst.
The first one is something called lion's tailing. I've seen this in my neighborhood. It's when someone strips all the inner foliage out of a tree and leaves just these little tufts of leaves at the very ends of the branches.
Yes, it looks exactly like the little puff of hair at the end of a lion's tail.
Right. And when I was reading about the physics of why this is bad, it totally blew my mind.
It's wild, isn't it?
I immediately pictured carrying a top-heavy broken umbrella into a gale force storm.
That's it, exactly.
By leaving all the weight and the wind resistance concentrated at the absolute furthest, weakest point of the branch, it's just asking to snap.
That broken umbrella image is exactly what happens. People think they are thinning the tree, but they are completely ruining its natural balance.
Because they're taking away the middle.
Right. When you remove the inner foliage, you eliminate the tree's ability to dampen the sway of its own branches.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, normally those inner leaves and branches catch a little bit of wind and slow the momentum. Without them, all that kinetic energy transfers directly to the branch unions at the trunk.
So they just break.
Under the pressure of a storm, those branch unions become vastly more likely to just snap right off.
It's wild that people actually pay landscapers to do this to their trees.
I know.
And the second disastrous trend is specifically for palms. They call it the hurricane cut.
Oh, the hurricane cut.
You've definitely seen this. They butcher a palm tree until there are only 2 or 3 green fronds left pointing straight up at the sky.
Yep.
It ends up looking like a giant, tragic feather duster. Why do people think this is a good idea?
It comes from a fundamental misunderstanding of physics and biology.
Okay.
People assume that by reducing the surface area of the palm, they are reducing wind resistance and, saving it from a hurricane.
Which sounds logical on the surface.
It does, but biologically, it is catastrophic. Palms absolutely need those horizontal fronds.
I would assume for photosynthesis, right? Just basic nutrition.
Yes, they rely on them for nutrition. But structurally, those horizontal fronds act as literal armor.
Armor?
Yeah. They are there to protect the heart of the palm.
The growing point.
Exactly. The growing point, or the heart, is right at the top center, shielded by those lower fronds.
Oh, I see.
When you strip all the horizontal fronds away, you expose the most vital, fragile part of the tree to direct battering wind damage.
That is awful.
A properly trimmed palm should still have a full circular head of green fronds. Expert tree care means you are only removing the dead brown fronds hanging below the horizontal line.
So if it's green, leave it alone.
If you are cutting green horizontal fronds, you are actively wounding the tree.
And there was a really visceral detail in the guide about why you do want to stay on top of removing those dead brown fronds, aside from just the tree's health.
Oh, the pests.
Yes. If you just leave spent seed pods and dead fronds hanging there year after year, those dense, decaying areas become absolute luxury condominiums for rats and roaches.
It's a nightmare.
They become nesting sites right above your patio.
Nature abhors a vacuum. Pests love dense, decaying organic matter.
Right.
That's why targeted structural maintenance is so vital, rather than just, chopping off everything green.
Okay, so let's say our tree has survived the sandy soil. It's getting the right deep watering.
Okay.
It's been properly thinned to let the hurricane winds pass through, and it hasn't been butchered into a feather duster.
Doing good so far.
It has survived nature's absolute worst. But I was reading the next section, and it turns out the biggest threat to the tree's life isn't a hurricane at all.
No, it's not.
It's the homeowner on a Saturday afternoon. We are literally killing our trees with care.
It's the great tragic irony of modern landscaping, and it usually starts right in the fertilizer aisle of your local hardware store.
Right. I am completely guilty of this. I thought fertilizer was just, fertilizer.
Most people do.
I grab a bag of generic 10-10-10 and throw it around the yard thinking I'm doing my plants a massive favor.
Yeah.
But the guide makes it incredibly clear. If you are throwing generic fertilizer on Florida palms and hardwoods, you are basically just throwing your money into the wind.
Because of that highly alkaline, sandy soil we talked about earlier, these trees have highly specific micronutrient needs just to function.
Micronutrients.
Yes. They don't just need the generic nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium mix. They desperately need manganese, magnesium, and potassium.
Yeah.
If they are deficient in any of those micronutrients, the tree's biological engine basically starts to stutter.
And the guide says the tree will physically tell you if it's starving, right?
Yeah.
You'll start seeing yellowing fronds on palms or strangely stunted pale leaves on hardwoods.
Yes, those are visual distress signals. But here's the kicker. Even if you go out and buy the correct, specialized, slow-release granular fertilizer, where you put it makes all the difference in the world.
This was another huge misconception for me. If I'm fertilizing a tree, my instinct is to dump it right at the base, like right against the trunk.
Right.
But the source says that's totally wrong and actually dangerous.
It is. If you dump concentrated fertilizer right against the trunk, the chemical salts will literally burn the bark.
Burn the bark.
Yeah. You have to spread it out what arborists call the drip line.
Which is where?
Imagine an umbrella.
Okay.
The drip line is the circular area directly underneath the outermost edges of the branches where rain would drip off the canopy.
Oh, I see.
That perimeter is where the tree's microscopic feeder roots are actually located. They aren't clustered around the trunk. They stretch way out to catch the water.
So that's where the food needs to go.
Exactly. You have to put the nutrients where the tree can physically absorb them.
That completely changes how I picture the underground structure of a tree. But there's an even more common mistake people make right at the trunk.
Let me guess.
The volcano mulch trap.
Oh, yes. The volcano.
Now that I know what this is, I drive around my neighborhood and I see it everywhere. It's when landscapers or homeowners take bags of mulch and pile it up super high right against the trunk of the tree, creating this massive pyramid or volcano shape. It looks very intentional and tidy, but it is a silent killer. Why does piling up mulch kill a tree?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, to understand why it's lethal, you really have to understand how a tree's bark functions.
Okay.
The trunk of a tree is not designed to be buried underground. It needs to breathe.
Bark breathes.
It does. Bark is tough, but it's porous. When you pile mulch against the bark, you are trapping moisture directly against the trunk 24 hours a day.
Oh, I see where this is going.
In the Florida heat and humidity, that trapped moisture immediately causes the bark to soften and rot.
Thanks.
And once the bark rots, you've just opened the front door for disease and pests to march straight into the vascular system of the tree.
So what's the solution? The guide recommends something called the flat donut method.
Yes.
You lay the mulch flat over the root zone to keep the soil cool and moist, but you leave a few inches of totally bare space between the mulch and the actual trunk.
Like a donut hole.
Right, so there's a literal hole in the middle. The roots get the benefit of the mulch, but the trunk gets air.
Exactly. And that flat donut of mulch serves a secondary, incredibly crucial biological purpose.
Which
It creates a physical buffer zone that keeps lawnmowers and string trimmers far away from the tree.
Oh, the weed whacker damage.
Yes.
The guide notes this is one of the leading causes of premature tree death in residential areas. A homeowner's out there doing yard work, they get a little too close with the string trimmer, and they hit the trunk.
Happens all the time.
Now, my thought was always, it's a giant wooden tree, a plastic string isn't going to hurt it.
Sure.
But one bad hit can girdle a young tree and kill it in a single season. How does a plastic string take down a whole tree?
This comes down to the vascular system of the tree, which is honestly incredibly misunderstood.
Okay, lay it on me.
The structural wood in the center of the tree is mostly dead support tissue.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The actual living, breathing veins of the tree, the phloem and xylem, which transport water up from the roots and sugars down from the leaves, they are located in a paper-thin layer directly underneath the bark.
So the lifeblood of the tree is entirely on the outside perimeter.
Precisely. When a weed whacker hits the trunk and cuts through the bark all the way around, which is what girdling means, it completely severs those vital vessels.
Oh, wow.
It's like putting a tourniquet around the tree's throat. The leaves can no longer send food to the roots, and the tree slowly starves to death.
That is awful.
It's a fatal wound delivered completely by accident.
It's heartbreaking when you put it like that.
Yeah.
But despite all our best efforts, the perfect deep watering, the specialized micronutrients, the ultimate mulch donut, sometimes the battle is lost.
It happens.
The tree gets sick or the rot sets in deeply.
Yeah.
And we need to talk about identifying when a tree is beyond saving, because keeping a dying tree around in a storm zone is incredibly dangerous.
Knowing when to cut your losses is just as critical as knowing how to care for the tree. A compromised, hollow tree in a hurricane zone is a massive liability.
Right.
It's a huge risk to your life and your property.
But if a tree is rotting from the inside out, how is a homeowner supposed to know? Are there external warning signs?
There are.
Because the guide mentions looking for shelf-like mushrooms growing right out of the base of the trunk.
Yes. If you see those hard, shelf-like mushrooms on the bark or the roots, that is a huge red flag for something called heart rot.
Heart rot.
Yeah. The tree might look perfectly green and vibrant up top, but the presence of those mushrooms means a fungus is actively decaying the structural wood inside.
Oh, no.
The interior of the trunk is likely hollow and totally compromised.
That is terrifying. The canopy is still acting like a giant sail catching the wind, but the mast holding it up is completely hollow.
Exactly.
What about the leaves? The source mentions something called dieback.
Dieback is a classic symptom of vascular failure. It's when the very tips of the highest, outermost branches start losing their leaves and dying first.
Why do the highest leaves die first?
Think about the immense water pressure required to pump moisture from the roots 50 feet up into the air against gravity.
Right, that takes a lot of force.
When the root system or the vascular tissue is failing, the tree loses that pumping pressure. The water simply can't reach the furthest points of the canopy anymore.
Ah, I get it.
So those top branches literally dry out and die, while the lower branches might still look okay for a while.
That makes total sense. The guide also mentions looking for sawdust-like material around the base.
Yeah, frass.
Right, frass.
Yeah.
Which means pests are eating the tree from the inside.
Yep.
Or seeing a lean that exceeds 15 degrees. Or fresh soil heaving up on one side, which means the roots are actively pulling out of the ground.
And then there's storm damage.
Right.
The general threshold for whether a tree can be saved after a severe storm is about 50%.
50%.
Yeah. If the tree has lost more than half of its total canopy, or if the main trunk is vertically split down the middle, it's almost always beyond repair.
That's a sad reality.
Though it is worth noting, the guide points out that live oaks are uniquely resilient. If the root system is completely intact, a live oak can often bounce back over time with careful structural pruning.
But if you can't bounce back,
Yeah.
if you see the mushrooms or the dieback or the heavy lean, so what does this all mean?
Well,
For you, the homeowner, it means you are looking at a highly dangerous logistical nightmare. You cannot try to take down a hollowed-out, leaning tree by yourself with a ladder and a chainsaw.
Absolutely not. That is a one-way ticket to the emergency room, or worse.
Right.
And you also shouldn't just hire the first person who shows up at your door with a pickup truck and a saw. The rules for hiring in this industry are incredibly strict for a very good reason.
I'll admit, before reading this, I probably would have just looked for the cheapest quote.
Yeah.
What's the real danger there?
Liability. Tree removal is one of the highest risk professions in the world.
Wow, really?
Oh, yeah. If you hire someone who doesn't have proper workers' compensation insurance and they fall off a ladder or, drop a branch on themselves while on your property,
Let me guess.
you, the homeowner, are legally and financially liable for their injuries.
That is a terrifying thought.
It happens.
So the guide says you need to ask for physical proof of insurance, not just take their word for it, and you specifically want to hire an IS-certified arborist.
Yes, an ISA arborist isn't just someone who owns a chainsaw.
Right.
They are highly trained technicians who have passed rigorous exams. They understand the biology of what they are cutting and the complex physics of safely dismantling massive structures.
Using all the gear.
Exactly, using ropes, harnesses, and bucket trucks so they don't, crush your roof on the way down.
And what about permits? If I want to remove a tree on my own land, do I have to get the city involved?
It depends on the zoning. For most residential properties in Palmetto, you don't actually need a city permit for removal if an ISA arborist provides written documentation proving the tree is an active danger to people or property.
That's good to know.
But if you're in a commercial site or an HOA common area, you generally still have to go through the official permitting process.
It's a whole ecosystem of liability, biology, and city ordinances.
It really is.
So let's recap this journey we've been on. We started by looking down at the sandy, crushed shell soil and realized that trees are living, breathing systems fighting for nutrients. We learned that surviving hurricane-force winds requires strategic thinning so the wind blows through the canopy, not butchering palms until they look like feather dusters.
Right.
And we discovered that our own lawn equipment and volcano molting habits are often the deadliest things in the yard.
And it is an investment absolutely worth protecting.
Definitely.
The guide points out that large, healthy, well-maintained trees can add up to 15% to your home's resale price.
15%.
Yeah. Conversely, dead or dangerous trees just add to your stress level and your financial liability.
It really puts the value of our yards into perspective. Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. Hopefully, the next time you step out into your yard, you'll look at that peaceful green canopy just a little differently.
And I'd like to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building entirely on the biology and physics we've discussed today.
Go for it.
It is profoundly ironic that a mighty live oak, with its deep roots and properly thinned branches, can survive the catastrophic screaming fury of a Florida hurricane by simply letting the wind blow through its canopy.
Right.
Only to be completely taken down and slowly starved to death because a homeowner accidentally grazed its trunk with a plastic string trimmer on a sunny Saturday afternoon. It really challenges us to ask, are our modern human conveniences actually a greater destructive force in our own yards than nature's worst storms?